Good morning, and today you find me in the woods. It's a grey day, it's a little bit chilly but not too bad. Pretty good conditions for fire lighting. And I thought I'd share something with you from the past. I'm going to light the fire today with an Opinel. Now this is a new one, and this is my ancient Opinel I've had about 30 years. And the fire lay, I'm going to do exactly the same way. Well, it'll probably be a bit neater now because it's 30 years on. But basically the same way I'd have done it 30 years ago when I was more or less starting off doing bushcrafting. A time before feather sticks and Scandi grinds and folding saws, basically snap twigs and shavings. Well, this is basically how I used to do the fire lay. A small bed of twigs on the ground, a couple of crappy logs and some twigs on top. And the idea is to get a pile of shavings, rest them on top, and to put your source of ignition underneath. And years ago what I would have done would have been either a Zippo lighter or a match underneath. And if the weather was pretty crap, I'd often use a candle. But today, ignition wise, I'm going to go a bit more bushcrafty, but the actual fire lighting will be retro. I'd always put a sit mat on the ground to catch my shavings. And this is snapped off, no posh saws. Well, that was hard work. Tiny little handle, super sharp blade, didn't curl very well. I'm so glad Scandis came out, but I've got enough. One good thing about the Opinel, it's got a really nice sharp spine, makes some scrapings. And this is the more bushcrafty bit. Well, straight away I found that doing it closed wasn't get the scrapings off very good, so I've opened it up. Luckily it's got a lock. Now for the bushcrafty bit, I'm going to light a piece of char cloth with the Opinel, and this is why I brought my old Opinel with me, because I didn't really want to take chunks off the back of the new one. And a piece of flint. Now, these don't spark that well. Some people may say and think they do, but this one doesn't spark that well. So we see how it goes. I'm using a big piece of char cloth and I've opened it out. Well, this will be the first attempt more surface area to catch. I've had a few land, but they haven't lit. I'll keep that off. And that's basically how I used to light the fire about 30 years ago. Probably still did it about 20 years ago as well. Obviously I didn't use charred material, that came along later when I found out things like that. But that lit pretty easy. And now it's time for tea. So the fire's lit, the kettle's on, and I just wanted to say a few things about the Opinel. Unfortunately the smoke is blowing straight in my face, so if I start wincing, you know why. Well, put it this way, that thin grind is no good for shaving wood. Excellent cutter, but no good at shaving wood. I really don't want to go back in time. I'm quite happy using my Scandi grinds. They're far better for working wood. as a backup knife. Well, you can shave with it, it's not brilliant. It's a good scraper, and I know for a fact it lights a fire steel. Sorry, mustn't get that wrong. A ferro rod really well. So that's pretty good. Small handle though, making them shavings wasn't fun. When I think how quick I could have done it with a decent bushcraft knife. But there we are. So I'll give you a quick little story now. I'll try and make it as quick as I can. How I came about having an Opinel years ago. I think it was about 1990, 1991. And there was a shop in Swansea, which, if you don't know what Swansea is the city next to my town. And they used to have quite a few camping shops in there. And one shop that they had, which I used to buy a lot of stuff, was a shop called Taunton Leisure. And they used to do a line of survival aids gear, so bashers, what we now call tarps, burghouse rucksacks, Trangia stoves, everything the budding young outdoorsman needs, and a lot of it in green, which is always good. And I was there one day and I started talking to a guy, and the guy's name was Andy, and we were similar age, similar interest, and he was telling me about, he asked me, "Oh, what books do you read?" And I said, "Well, I've got Lofty Wiseman's SAS Survival Handbook." I think that's all I had at that time. And he said, "You want to get a book called The Survival Handbook, a Practical Guide to Woodcraft and Woodlaw by a guy called Raymond Mears." I said, "Oh, where do I get that then?" And he said, "Uplands Bookshop." So I walked all the way up Uplands Bookshop, and if you're familiar with the area, and there's not many of you going to be, it's a bit of a walk from the train station to Uplands Bookshop. Walked all the way up there, didn't have the book. I had to order the book. A couple of weeks later, phone call, book's in. Or could have even had a letter, it's that long ago. Book's in. When I get the book, so I'm thumbing through the book, and I see this knife, and I think, it's a funny looking knife, because I'd always been using Swiss Army knives, or the old Buck clones, the cheap and nasty Buck Hunter Ranger copies. I'd had one of them for a while. There was an Opinel in there, and I bought an Opinel. Can't remember where, but I bought an Opinel. That's it. And I basically used this as my EDC for work for years and years, until I bought a Benchmade Pinnacle, and then that was my EDC for a hell of a long time. But this knife has seen some action. I put a little lanyard on it at some point as well. God knows why, it doesn't need one. I don't think I've ever unwrapped it from there. But the lock is more or less gone, it just turns around. It's not particularly, oh, it is sharp too. So when you lock it, it's not particularly safe, so I don't use it anymore. But obviously I'll keep it for nostalgia. God, this smokes in my face. Hope you enjoyed that little story. Oh, and by the way, that guy Andy is a good friend of mine now, and that's Andy Price of Dryad Bushcraft, who at one point was the global bushcraft ambassador for Bushcraft and Survival Skills magazine, and he was the editor at some point as well. Top guy, good friend. Introduced me to Uncle Ray. I've had my cup of tea, which actually went straight through me, so I had to have a pee, and now I'm going to try and redeem myself, because 2 weeks ago I made a wet bake which went horribly wrong. I tried it with a tin of condensed milk instead of powdered milk like usual, and it was crap. So I'm going to do it now as I've always done it, and hopefully that'll work, because I'm using this Chinese pot, which is a little bit smaller than I've used in the past. Smoke is blowing straight in my face, so I've moved my seat. Always a good idea to have a few different places to sit, because who knows what the wind does. Well, I'm not going to bore you with any mixing, but today I've got a little bowl. Do my mixing in there. And today's mix is, that's pre-mixed, and that's self-raising flour, powdered milk, and a little bit of extra baking powder. Hope it'll rise a bit better. And I got some sugar and some dried fruit in there. I'll mix it up now, and I'm going to put oil, not butter, in the pot, and I'm going to get it hot. I'm getting some air into the flour before I put the water in. I'm mixing it thoroughly, obviously, because there is powdered milk and extra raisin agent in here. I could do this with powdered egg or a fresh egg to make more of a cake, and that does tend to work very well. It's a bit lumpy. That must be the powdered milk. Oh well. Oh, not hot enough. I'm making sure I'm coating the whole inside. One thing with this pot, it doesn't hang level, so that's why I've put a stick on top of it, get it level. It's a bit on the tilt. I'm going to keep an eye on that now, but I got a job to do. Need to make a new batton or baton. That has seen better days. I got a new sheath for my axe, and this was very kindly given to me by Toby Hobby, my mate, top Welsh leather worker. I'll explain about that later on. Oop. Time to get a proper knife out. Clean his handle up a bit. Done. It's a bit rough, I know, but let's face it, that's all it's going to do is knock a knife or an axe through a log. And it'll look like the other one in next to no time. If I didn't have an axe, pretty easy really. Do them cuts, then do straight cuts, put the knife on top, batten it down, shave it off. But seeing as I had the axe with me, I just used the axe instead of battening it off. Now last year on holiday or vacation, as our friends in the USA say, I got some of these from the room, well, from one of the hotel rooms we stayed in. 1 cup decaf coffee filter pack. Now I am a bit of a sod for raiding the free tea and coffee sachets, as I'm suppose are most outdoors people. Well, that's basically a coffee bag. I got a few of these. Well, we're going to try it. I'm going to put it in the cup and pour straight on top of it from a bit of a height. See if it works out okay. The wind is blowing to the left, so I'm going to put that on the floor directly in the wind. Now, I am not a fan of sticking a pot or a bottle or anything in the fire. It's not something I've ever done, and considering it takes minutes to make some kind of pot hanger, even if you're just resting a stick on a log, something I hardly ever do. And I see a lot of guys, they put their bottle straight in the fire, and that's just something I have never done. And I remember watching a video with Coal Cracker Bushcraft, and he said the time spent in the woods, you can tell from the state of your bottle. And I thought, I spend a lot of time in the woods and I have never put my bottle in the fire. That's just me though. That's been in there a few minutes now, and to be honest with you, it looks as weak as piss. And I didn't make a full cup either. Soon find out. Oh, that's bloody awful. Oh well, it's warm, it's wet. I suppose it's better than nettle tea. Well, it's definitely risen, but it's had a bit too much heat on the sides by the look of it. So it's toasting now. You saw me with the axe earlier and the new case. Well, I got a big thank you to say. Thank you, Toby. Now, last week, Toby and I were talking on Messenger, and I mentioned to him that I was thinking of doing a video on an Opinel. And he said, oh, I've got an Opinel. He said, I never use it. You can have it. Thank you very much. So he said he'd pop it in the post for me. It's this one, the number 7. Through the post yesterday, the Opinel came, and so did this axe mask. How kind is he? He knows I've been going through some personal difficulties at the moment, and he sent it to cheer me up. What a nice guy. So this is a plug for Toby, who makes lovely sheaths. They're nicer than mine. And he was Red Kite Leatherworks, and now he's changed his name to Coal Country Customs. He did tell me why. I think he just wanted a change, basically. But nobody outside the UK knows what a red kite is. It's a bird of prey, by the way, and there's a lot of them in Wales. So thanks again, Tob. You are a gentleman, and you will be repaid in this world or the next. Well, if you remember last week, I part cut them through with the big saw, so it'd be easier with the small saw. Now this is a naughty little sod, so let's have a go going through it. With the new baton. I'm going to try my best not to go through a knot. You don't have to go through the middle, you can go off to the side, especially with these knotty pieces of spruce. If there's a knot in it, try and get between that knot, not through that knot. But there's a definite reason why that collar is on this little axe. Because when you're doing that, you really could do with more here, so that does help. I'm going to like this a bit more the more I use it. The moment of truth. It's better, but it's still not brilliant. Obviously, a bad workman blames his tools, but I don't think this pot is ideal for doing this in. When I consider how many times in the past I've done this in a zebra pot, a bigger one, and in a pathfinder pot. I think it's just too narrow. It needs more surface area on the base, but this is certainly better than the last one. Let's see if I can make a feather stick and light it with this. I'm not holding out much hope. Oh, what do I know? That should go up. Shit. If you can't do it the Yahoo method, and you can't do it with the closed spine method, just make loads of scrapings, and that worked fine then. Well, another day of bushcrafting in the woods has come to an end. My thoughts for the day, basically, I'm getting to like that axe more and more I use it. I still prefer the wildlife hatchet, but it's a nice little axe, and with a nice new sheath it gives it that extra little boost. Opinel, well, it does the job. I wouldn't like to use it for very long though, especially that number 7, because it is small. You get quite a bit of fatigue on the hand. But as a backup knife and something to cut your tomatoes up, it's grand. Massive thanks again to Toby for the gifts. You're a top bloke, thank you very much. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. It was nice to relive a fire lighting method that's gone out with the arc, making shavings. Only thing with that is, if it's really windy, they're going to blow away, or you're going to have to make some kind of shelter thing around you. And years ago, I always used to make a windbreak / flyer reflector, which didn't reflect anything, but there we are. That's what I used to do years ago. I don't do it now. I just move around. Let's face it, they don't actually work unless they're 6 foot tall. The wind comes over the top and eddies, and all the smoke just goes everywhere. So if you're planning on making one of them to stop the wind, it's got to be perfect with no gaps in it, and it's got to be really tall. Basically, if you're doing a fixed camp and you're going to stay in the same spot for a long time, yeah, I suppose they're a good idea. But just having a campfire and sitting around it, complete waste of time. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thumbs up is always appreciated, and a share if you feel the need. please do it. As a backup knife, well, you can shave with it, it's not brilliant. It's a good scraper, and I know for a fact it lights a fire steel. Sorry, mustn't get that wrong. A ferro rod really well. So I need around, and I need a cup of tea. Well, it's a good job. I've got my Pathfinder mug with me. I'll start that again. Wife beater. If my wife heard that, she'd go off her head. Don't beat up women. Bad shit. This coffee is absolute piss. That's what I think of that. Massive thanks again to Toby for the gifts. You're a top bloke, thank you very much. I do need to think before I put the camera on of what I'm going to say. Right. After video personal thoughts today. I did it last time, I'm going to do it again. Looks like we're heading for another lockdown with the corona plague. If I've got to take time off work, well, that'll suit me because I can make some knives. I made a few recently, and I got loads of interest, and I'm chuffed to bits about that. That's great. Yeah, coronavirus, bit of a shit, innit? I suppose it's affecting everyone, affecting a lot of people's mental health. I'm really missing my mates, really missing seeing my pals. I've seen Russ a couple of times, but I'm trying to keep away, but that's work related. I haven't seen Nick and Scott for weeks. We WhatsApp, obviously. Everybody does that. Sometimes you got nothing to say. It's a shame. Right, I'm off now.